Hello again, everybody. This is Brother Chooch for Thinking Out Loud about the End Times. This is Night Watch, a nighttime program for those who are awaiting the soon return of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to pull us out of Freemason haven and into the clouds, where we will see him face to face for the first time and be changed. And then the Lord will take us to the place that he's been preparing for us for about 2,000 years, so that we could be with the Lord forevermore. This is our blessed hope, and a wonderful hope it is. It is the hope that keeps me going day by day. Today could be the day, tomorrow could be the day, or the day after tomorrow. And we're just going to keep looking day by day until we hear that shout, until we hear that trumpet blast, because we know the Lord, when he says something, he must fulfill it. And he said he went to prepare a place, and he even told us where he's going. He's going to prepare a place at his Father's house. His Father's house is not on earth. His Father's house is clearly in heaven. And if you believe that the Galilean wedding was the language that Jesus was using in John 14, which I truly believe he was using that, then it's a very clear picture that Jesus is coming for his bride before the wrath, before the tribulation period. So you need 7 days of celebration for a wedding. Well, that fits perfectly with the 7-year allotment of the time of tribulation. We'll be celebrating with our new bridegroom. Sadly, the earth will be going through 7 years of judgment and disaster and death and war, and I could go on, and will ultimately culminate in the Battle of Armageddon, which we will return to earth with the Lord as he appears at the second coming. So we have a great future to look forward to, don't we? Now, we do also know that when he does appear, we will be changed. We will go from these corruptible, dying, mortal bodies into incorruptible, glorious, eternal bodies. We will be reunited with loved ones who have fell asleep in the Lord. Their soul spirit will be reunited with a body that has been transformed. So even if, let's say, a believer who's been dead for 300 years and is fully decomposed, God in his infinite power could take even what was broken down and change it into that glorified body. So it's amazing what will happen on that day. So yes, there's a lot to get excited about. But I must admit, when I did read an article, I think it was yesterday, which I'm going to read to you, I don't want to say that the blood drained from my body. I don't want to say that my stomach turned upside down. I don't want to say that I had a lump in my throat. But it was bad news. I was like, what am I reading here? I thought it was very, very bad news. And I'm thankful for Sister Anita. I don't know her last name. I just know she's a faithful sister in the Lord. I'm a part of a couple groups that have, watchmen in it, and I just posted on the feed, I think it was Telegram. Yeah, it was Telegram. What about what this article is saying, which is basically, in a nutshell, saying they might not have any viable heifers. And so the way my mind works, right, I'm just thinking, how can this be? How can all these chess pieces have been clearly set up on the chessboard? You got all your pawns, you got things like, birth pangs, and you got globalism, and you got the rise of immorality, and you have economic system that is headed towards digital and a global system. You have the big chess pieces like Starlink and not Starlink, Stargate, the AI that's being produced, and you have the Abraham Accords. You have hostility between Iran's and their nuclear program and Israel and the United States, and all these pieces that are seemingly in place. Even at the point where you're starting to say how cryptic, President Trump is speaking as if something's going to happen within days, and kind of alluding to, if not more direct, that they are going to be Iran is in the crosshairs basically, and Hamas only has so much time to release the hostages. So you got and then one of the chess pieces that actually was on the board a few years ago was there needs to be the ashes of red heifer. I mean, the bottom line, folks, is that we know clearly that there's going to be a temple in the tribulation period. And that temple will be operational leading into the midway point, because there's the daily oblation that's going on. Then you have the abomination that causes desolation, which causes the daily oblation to end, the daily sacrifice to end. So obviously you need a real physical temple with real sacrifices happening. And then it comes to screeching halt because the Antichrist has to desecrate the temple. So all that can't happen unless they go through the purification ritual, which needs the ashes of the red heifer. Okay? So I'll get to what Sister Anita sent me in a little bit, okay? But I just want to draw the picture here of like the chessboard's all set. You think you're ready to, that the first move's going to come, the game's going to start, and somebody comes and pulls out your knight, the horsey looking guy. And you're like, why is that piece gone? That's kind of how I felt after I read the article. So let me start by reading the article of interest that I spoke about, so you know where I'm coming from, and I'm not just too nebulous that you don't know what the issue is here. Okay. Now keep in mind that this is from Israel 365, so this is a reliable source. And as Ariel, the head of the Temple Institute's Red Heifer Project, okay, he's Rabbi Ezriel Ariel, recently gave a Hebrew language interview answering many of the questions concerning the project's recent developments. And let me just pause briefly because I don't want to forget to say this. This was a tough week for me. physically speaking. And I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your prayers. I had a flu or something. I don't know what it was, but I had a temperature. I had the chills. I was very weak. All I wanted to do was sleep. I had a cough. I thought I was going to die, but I'm a big baby when it comes to sickness. And Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday were bad days. Thursday wasn't as bad, but obviously now Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think I'm like at 85%. So I just want to thank you. Okay, back to the article. At this moment, it's unclear whether, now listen to this. At this moment, it is unclear whether we have in our possession in Israel a red heifer that is verifiably kosher. I'm going to take one of these cough drops. Verifiably kosher and suited for the ceremony. About 2 years ago, 5 excellent red calves were brought to Israel. They had been checked and certified in America as perfectly red, but several months after they arrived, they began to grow white hairs. There's an ongoing discussion in the Temple Institute regarding their suitability, about whether listen to this one. This is so much the law here. There's an ongoing discussion in the Temple Institute regarding their suitability about whether the proximity of the hairs to each other disqualifies the cow or not. Okay? So let me pause there. Number one is this. We have been hearing nothing since the Temple Institute spent a king's ransom, basically, who have followed closely and worked with this rancher, who happens to be a born-again Christian, in getting these 5 kosher red heifers from Texas over to Israel. I think the cost was astronomical. The purchase of the heifers and airlifting them all the way over to Israel. A terrific amount of money. And in the updates that we've gotten from the Temple Institute, I do not remember, and I think I would have clearly have seen this, the news that he is now sharing. I have never got any material from them. And I would challenge anyone out there, either if this was something that they heard about in 2022, 2023, or 2024, that several months after they were flown over, that they started to get some white hairs. This is new news. Very new news. And so, I wish if that were the case, that they had sounded the alarm several months after they were brought over. Several months after they arrived, they began to grow white hairs. I find that rather remarkable because it's like, well, thanks for letting us know when most of the world is on pins and needles thinking that this Passover or around that time, maybe during the Shabbat of the red heifers, which I believe is March 21st and 22nd, might happen then. But this seemed like just a complete wet blanket thrown over those who were watching diligently the progress of these heifers, and that they really need to be sacrificed soon or they're going to be too old. So let me go on with the article. A red heifer is an entirely red female cow with no more than one non-red hair in its entire body. That's amazing. One non-red hair. So I guess black or white. I mean, that's... First of all, just like I say with the law, right? The law, what the rabbis have done over the years, collectively, is they interpret the law of Moses, and then it feels like they add on to it. You know, it's like, okay, what's considered work on, Shabbat? What is considered a red heifer? Because this is what the Bible says. I'm going to pull this graphic up for you so we're on the same page here. Right. Now I know the cow's blocking some of the words, so I'll speak to the children of Israel and have them take for them perfectly red unblemished cow upon which no yoke was laid. Right. I'm not sure what version of the Bible that is, but I'm not enthralled by whatever that version is. But that's the instructions there, right? And so, if you see here, I'm gonna look it up, okay? And see if we could get a little bit better translation of this. Because to me, I think that they're making it out. Here it is. It's Numbers 19 and verse 2. I'll do KJV. How's that? This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon there never came yoke. All right, you see that? So, according to this verse, and then it says, okay, take a heifer of 3 years old. So I'm assuming that the rabbis took some of this and they added a bit to it. So it says, take a heifer of 3 years old. Did the rabbis put limits on, okay, how much past year 3 can the heifer be sacrificed? And a heifer without spot, how could they come with the conclusion of only no more than one unred hair? Wherein is no blemish. Well, how do you define that? And upon which never came to be yoked. I think that would be, easy to understand. And the other thing would be that they added, which I don't see here, but they don't have that tag in their ear, a hole punched in their ear, which I think is required to happen. But I think as the story goes, because these heifers were born around the time and growing about the time of COVID, the inspector that was supposed to make sure that each of the cow's ears were punched with that tag, delayed or something, and they were sold prior to them needing to be tagged. The rabbis got them. So if COVID wasn't going on, all of those 5 heifers would have been disqualified, which makes me believe that in God's providence and sovereignty, he allowed those heifers not to receive that puncture in their ears. So they're flown over, and we've had some, I think, positive reports about them over the years. And we do know that one or two might have got disqualified. But to me, there seemed to always be at least three in the running. Maybe at least, I think three, maybe two at the worst. But now all of a sudden, all of them? And I don't want to call this rabbi a liar, okay? But he is man. And to be quite honest, something is rotten in the state of Denmark here. Something's not adding up. So, with all the cows that were once entirely red and later grew non-white hairs, there are occasionally inspected to determine whether the non-white hairs remain. The question now, this is now back to quoting the Rabbi Ariel. The question now is how to proceed. There are several essential questions that must be addressed regarding the cows themselves and other issues surrounding the issue of the temple and the temple service. Rabbi Ariel said, "We are speaking with a range of rabbis and professionals about these issues we haven't dealt with in over 2,000 years." Then he goes on to say, awareness of the temple is even rising among Israel's enemies. Soldiers returning from Gaza spoke of pictures of the Dome of the Rock in their homes, and many expressed a desire to hang pictures of the temple in their homes. This awakening indicates a strong desire to be part of the public, to connect with the holy place. Now, I think that's interesting that he brings this up, right? This rabbi is stating that even awareness of the temple is rising among Israel's enemies. So I'm thinking we're talking about Hamas and Hezbollah and others. And we're going to get into that a little bit more because I think that's true. Soldiers returning from Gaza spoke of pictures of the Dome of the Rock in their homes. And so in other words, I'm thinking what he's trying to say is that the Israeli troops saw in Gaza homes pictures of the Dome of the Rock. And many expressed a desire to hang pictures of the temple in their homes. So does that mean that the Gazans want a picture of the temple in their home alongside the Dome of the Rock? Or the soldiers that saw the Dome of the Rock on homes in Gaza want, as they return home, pictures of the temple hung from their house? Regardless, there is more and more interest in the temple. And that is one of the reasons why I'm going to show you a clip why I agree with this explanation that's about to come, okay? So, let's see here. I just want to make sure I'm adding everything I want to get to you here. So then he goes, the rabbi noted that the articles and videos concerning the red heifer were seen in Arabic media. The Christians in America are waking up to their role. They are happy. The Muslims are as well, but are less happy about it. It is taking us a bit longer to internalize that we are required to do what we are required to do at this time. There will be no religious coercion, not on the individual and not on the groups. 99% of the global public will want this and happily participate in the house of prayer for all nations. Now, unlike the temples of times in the past, I think Israel is looking at this temple to be something that the world in its entirety, the globe, the public, 99%, a place of a house of prayer for all nations. Now, I understand that, like Solomon's temple, right? That there's an area for Gentiles, but they could only go so far. And in fact, if a Gentile went one step into the area where only the Jews were allowed, that Gentile is subject to death. So the plan for this temple is not necessarily aligned with the other two temples that had already been up and now are down. But just on the surface, you get the sense with this rabbi that he's downplaying the nearness of the sacrifice. Is there a motivation behind that? He's noting that the talk about a temple has heated up, and he's speaking about it in a positive way because he wants it to be in a positive connotation. But I think the rabbi here knows that many in the Muslim world are looking at this as a threat or a problem. And I'm gonna show that for you here. Let me pull this up. Right, this is another article. Oh, okay, fair enough. This is from All Israel News. I'm not going to read all of this. But the headline of this article: what do the 5 heifers have to do with the October 7th massacre? All right, listen to this. Back in January, a story flew under the radar that's well worth discussing: the relationship between October 7th massacre and 5 red heifers. Yes, you read that correctly. At the 100-day mark of the war, Abu Abida, the military spokesman for the Hamas al-Qassam brigades, gave a televised speech about the Hamas efforts, as well as a reminder of the purposes of the war. Now, this speech was translated into English by the Palestinian Chronicle. Listen to this. We look back 100 days to remember the educated, the complicit, and incapacitated among the world powers governed by the law of the jungle, reminding them of an aggression that reached its peak against our path. El-Quds and El-Aqsa. With the start of its actual temporal and spatial division and the bringing of red cows as an application of a detestable religious myth designed for aggression against the feelings of an entire nation in the heart of its Arab identity and the path of its prophet and ascension to heaven. Woof. So right there, amid a very wordy discussion of perceived Israeli aggression against Al-Quds and the Muslim name for Jerusalem, and El-Aqsa, the black domed mosque on the Temple Mount, lies a curious and telling statement: the bringing of red cows. These red cows, 5 red Angus heifers imported from Texas in September of 2022 through a joint effort established between a Christian ministry, Bona, Israel, and the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. So basically, this language that's being used here, accusing Israel of inciting basically aggression against the Muslim world with these 5 red cows, that they refer to as a detestable religious myth. So, like, they're going to use the cows as a reason to be aggressive towards the heart of the Arab identity, which is Jerusalem. I think that very clearly Rabbi Ariel is aware of this. So now, instead of me, and I will expound on this, instead of me explaining my take or my view on all of this, which I will comment on the video that's being shown here. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I could find out who is speaking, obviously he sounds like a good brother in the Lord. I will put it in the comment section, so maybe you could look him up on YouTube, or maybe subscribe to him. I don't even know if he has a channel. But I like what he shares here. He says it in a humble way. He's not pounding his chest that he's right and he must be true and everything else is wrong in his analysis or anything like that. He, I think, is onto something. And so I recorded this. I'm going to shrink down a little bit and I'm going to put this recording on. I don't think it's that long, but I'll let it run its entire course, okay? And here it goes.
According to Rabbi Ariel, at this moment, they don't have a red heifer suited for ceremony.
I'm not sure about you guys, but this is actually confirmation to me that they do have a red heifer ready and they're about to sacrifice it. As we know with the art of war, that all warfare is based on deception. There's several different ways on how deception is used in warfare, but these two that I highlighted makes me think of this situation going on with this article talking about how there is no longer a red heifer available. How we have misleading orders giving false information to confuse the enemy, and false maneuvers create false movements to deceive the enemy. So now again, this is all speculation and my own personal opinion and discernment, but this article coming out a week before Purim, we have talks with Trump and Iran and their nuclear facilities. We have this happening a month before Passover. It makes me think that this right here is a deception. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Because we know if these red heifers are sacrificed, that is leading to a third temple on the Temple Mount. And we also know that Islamic extremists do not want that, as we saw with this article or this news that came out about how the October 7th attack happened because of the red heifers. Well, at least that is the narrative, right? So again, in my own personal opinion and speculation, I see this news article right here as a diversion. Let's critically think here for a second. Let's say they do not have a red heifer. They do not need to make an article telling us they do not have a red heifer, but they want to portray that they do not have one ready for the third temple a week before Purim and a month before Passover. Because again, the art of war is deception. Actually, this is exactly what I would expect right before they do sacrifice a red heifer, because they don't want people focused on this realizing what they are doing. But again, this is all speculation and conjecture. We have to read between the lines and discern what's going on, and I'm just giving you my own opinion. So with that, it doesn't really even matter, right? Because they will find a way to get that third temple, whether they have a red heifer ready or not. They will figure a way out. That is what they do through manipulation. So again, with it all being said, guys, you just focus your eyes upon the Lord. Don't allow this information to distract you from your personal walk with the Lord. Everything right now, there is just operation after operation with this spiritual, psychological warfare going on, and we do not want to get caught too much into it, okay? We want to discern what's going on, being wise as a serpent and innocent and gentle as a dove, but we need to rely on our intimacy, our relationship with the Lord, walking with love, walking with grace, walking with mercy, allowing the fruit of the Spirit to go forth, and allow Him to guide you to all wisdom and understanding, really leaning upon Him, understanding your humility, and that we are so just bombarded with information and disinformation. It's hard to discern, right? All we see is what is presented to us, so we have to understand our humility with this all, knowing that we really don't know what's going on, but we lean upon the Lord and we have his word to go to. So with it, the times are strange. We can see the writing on the wall, and we look up, realizing that our redemption draws near. God bless, guys. I love you all so much. And remember, the just shall live by faith.
All right. Sometimes you just have to admit that you can't top what someone else said. I mean, he remember I told you I was a bit distraught and shaken? When I watched, that was from Sister Anita. I don't know the gentleman's name. I can't wait to meet him up in heaven. But I will say this, is that after I watched that short clip, I felt a weight come off of me. And I felt like, wait a second. He makes a lot of good points. First and foremost, do you think God's up in heaven, pacing back and forth, saying, what are we going to do now? Of course not. Do you think that the Temple Institute that's been rabid about getting the temple up has spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to get to try to get this temple up, all of a sudden is going to shrug their shoulders and stop proceeding forward because 2 years might be not too close? Have they ever heard of something called tweezers? Or Clearall 380? So when the Lord puts all these things in motion and you get news like this, you have to be a bit skeptical. Because there seems to be clear motivation where you know that they're protecting these cows. I'm telling you, they are protecting these cows, and if there is a clear message that they are going to sacrifice them at a certain time, you are going to have some Islamic extremists at the ready to try to thwart that effort. And they would be seen as heroes. Heroes if they were able to prevent that from happening. So it's possible that the Temple Institute is trying to lessen the attention until it's done. Now, some people have been saying, what if they already sacrificed a heifer already and they have the ashes? We can't rule that out. Really can't. And the language that he used, you know, you ever and I guess this is debatable, you ever you don't want to lie, and you explain to somebody what happened, but you leave out some things. That's debatable. Is that lying? Is that fully being truthful? Well, this possibly in this interview, did he really say a number? I didn't read any numbers that he mentioned. He mentioned the 5 that originally came. And then he just mentioned them having. Well, them. Does that mean all of them is one? Did you already sacrifice one? I wouldn't be surprised if they sacrificed one just to protect themselves in the event when they do a more public ceremony that if a problem happened, they still have official ashes. I don't know. For all I know, all five heifers, may very well be all disqualified. We can't. We are not. I am not there. I have to go by what this rabbi is saying. And I'm assuming that he's a lost person. And because he's a lost person, I know Christians could lie, lost people could lie too, of course, right? I can't take his word to be rock solid, accurate truth. Especially if it's pretty clear that they must have concern, the possibility that the Muslim world is very interested in how this is all going to play out, especially knowing that war might start up again with Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis. And the Houthis, right? So, at the end of it all, is even the Israeli government maybe speaking with the Temple Institute and saying, let's be more hush-hush on this? I don't know. I do know this, is that this is definitely something which we have to keep our eye on. For all we know, the ashes of the red heifer may have already been attained. But the bottom line is God is still ultimately in charge here. And if you've been watching like I have been watching for a very long time, don't let this discourage you. Don't let this get you down. Why am I talking about it tonight? Because we need to. This is definitely a needed subject that we need to think out loud about. Why not? Why not discuss it? Why not think about it and say, is this the case or is something else happening here? Because that's why we have these episodes. We want to explore what is going on in the world and to talk about these things. Now, like I said, there's a lot of other things that are right on the brink. If Israel goes back to war with Hamas, and I believe that President Trump is very motivated to get Hamas out of the way so he could do what he wants to do in Gaza. You cannot come close to doing what you want to do in Gaza if Hamas is still around. You just can't. It's not going to work. So something's definitely got to give. You can't have Hamas, sitting at Trump Gaza, sipping on martinis and spinning the roulette wheel. It's not going to work that way. So Trump very clearly said he gave Israel all that they need to finish the job. Very strong language. And the time is set in the very near future. Now, I don't know what to make of this coming blood moon. I don't think the blood moon is going to be able to be seen over Israel, so I really don't know how significant it is. I know some people are, the rapture could be during that time, or I don't know. I hope so, but I wish I knew. But it's just one of those other things that we're looking at, because we are now in March, entering into the spring season. I finally will allow my vote. Let me just show you this here. I don't think you could see it because I'm blocking it. Here we go. Now, the three different parties at TOL have to agree on the state of RAPCON. Teebs and the board have already voted RAPCON 2 a couple weeks ago. I stuck with RAPCON 3. As of this week, I will change my vote and agree that we can go up to RAPCON status of RAPCON 2, which is a very high watch time. Now, let me just say this, is that I believe that the typology in Scripture works better for a late summer, early fall rapture, because I really am on board with end of wheat, beginning of the new wine. I think there's some beautiful pictures there. But to be honest with you, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's early spring. For years, I spoke about a spring rapture and a fall tribulation. Spring rapture and a fall tribulation period. Beginning of the fall. In the fall season, the tribulation period begins, and the tribulation period ends in the fall season. So, let's say the rapture is going to happen this year. I see it happening anytime from springtime to mid to late fall. Probably more beginning to mid-fall. And then the tribulation period possibly happening this year. Now, will it all play out that way? Not necessarily. But I will admit that I think, regardless of what this rabbi is saying, I'm on board now. Especially if Israel goes back to war, which is going to lead to peace and safety, peace and safety, peace and safety, peace and security. It makes a lot of sense, the time for a covenant to be confirmed with the many. Now, does that mean Trump's the Antichrist? Not necessarily. Could be, not necessarily. But I encourage you, brothers and sisters, make allegiance with no man. We don't put our trust in kings and princes. Put your trust in the Lord. Is God allowing Trump to let all this happen for his purposes and for his glory? Very well could be. I don't have all the answers for you, but I do know this. God's will be done. And that's a good thing. God's will be done. And so we could be confident, very confident, that at the end of it all, when the proverbial dust settles, there's one thing that will be certain. God's will be done. And I think we're seeing it play out right before our eyes. So I could do RAPCON whatever. That doesn't move God in the least. But guess what? He told us to watch. So I'm going to watch. And being in RAPCON 2, your eyes bulge out a little bit more. And in RAPCON 1, it's like, in the cartoons when their eyeballs are got like the springs on that. I mean, you're just eyeball protruding watch. I mean, you can't even sleep at night sometimes, right? Because you're just like... So, this is really, really an interesting year. And I must be honest with you, I thought that 2024 and 2026 were better. Were out of the three. When we were in 2024, we're looking at the final The final four was 2022, 2023, 2024, 2020. No. I'm so bad with math. 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, right? 2023, when we're entering into 2023, right? I was thinking, I like 2023, I like 2024, and I like 2026, but 2025 might be just a waiting out year. Right? I'm really thinking this year really was and is a incredibly strong candidate all of a sudden. And if you look at the the Chuck Missler video I did and what's going on there, So yeah, see, here's an example right here. Okay, let me just show you this real quick. Man's effort, right? I mean, I tried myself at the Temple Institute to try to get this, keep these babies red, right? And I only got so far before I was detained, but when I was able to get close enough to these guys, and I did have equipment with me. I did have the Clairol. I did have the tweezers. I would have pulled it out with my teeth if I saw white hair, believe me. But they are protective of these guys. They are. And so I have a hard time believing that all these cows are disqualified. But even if I were to spot white hairs and I took out the Clairol, I took out the tweezers or whatever, it's not about man's effort. I don't have to get involved. I didn't need to get involved. I didn't need to get detained. I didn't need to be questioned. I didn't need to be waterboarded. Just stay doing what you have to do for the Lord where you're at and let God take care of the details. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, so now, okay, my social score went down a little bit. Whoop-de-doo. I learned to stay in my place. And my place right now is stay in America, work on TOL, focus on the family, do what the Lord's calling you to do, and try to finish this race well. I went through some, like I said, I'm a pretty big baby when I'm sick. And one of the, you talk a good game, but when you get sick, it humbles you, right? And so I always think I'm dying when I'm sick for some reason. Kind of sad. But I'll tell you what, sometimes it just brings out the best in you in some ways because you're just seeking the Lord with extra sincerity of heart. And I had before I went to bed one night, here I am, not feeling well, feeling weak, having fever, just kind of struggling, and just pouring my heart out to the Lord. And I said to him, I asked the Lord to come back, and I told him, I'm weary, Lord. I'm weary. I'm tired. I'm weary. And amazingly, you laying down to bed and admittingly having a hard time, falling asleep, trying to get my mind off of my worries and my concerns, but just kind of at the end of myself in a way where I'm really tired of waiting. I'm really tired of waiting another day for the rapture. Will it be this time? Will it be that time? And the Lord is so good. He really is. I find it that he somehow knows our heart, and he speaks to us, and he speaks to us in such a way where we can wholeheartedly trust in him. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in that place before, when you're just sort of like, you're kind of at the end of yourself, and you don't know what to do. You're tired. You're cranky, you know. And he showed me a verse, and I want to see if I could find it here. I'm going to have to look it up. This is not a common verse. Let me see if I could look it up here. Excuse me. It's in the book of Jeremiah. No, that's not the verse. Hang on. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. I really want to find this. Okay. I'm sorry for the delay. I just really wanted to give you this. So I repeated to the Lord, I'm weary, Lord. I'm tired. I'm weary. I feel like I'm going to faint. So that sort of language, right? And then I do something unusual, because I usually hit the pillow and I'm out pretty quick. But because I was sick, you're kind of floundering a bit. And I put on Christian meditation music just to have something to listen to. So I listened to it, and this one verse pops up in Jeremiah 31, verse 25. It's right after I said my prayer, and I'm looking at this comfortable graphic going on, this nice melody, soothing melody in the background. And the verse says this: For I have, it was not this version, so I want to read the version that they had, just so it's the same one. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Jeremiah 31:25. For I will satisfy the weary soul, and every languishing soul I will replenish. What a perfect verse. See how the Lord speaks to us? And I'm sure you've had these moments too. He knew the perfect verse that I needed. For I will satisfy the weary soul. I was weary. Who will satisfy my weary soul? The Lord. And every languishing soul, that's you and I, brothers, I will replenish. Now, that certainly would happen at the rapture, or he could have that happen now for us. And to get us to the finish line, even though we might be a bit weary or tired, I encourage you to press on. I encourage you to continue to hope and to look up, and don't be discouraged. And if you're listening out there and you don't know Jesus, he's the only way to heaven. Do you realize that Jesus is the very embodiment of God? He's the Son of God who came down from heaven and became man and lived a sinless life. He was fully God and fully man. And at the right time, he chose to go to the cross to pay the punishment for our sins by shedding his innocent blood. And it's through that blood, and only through that blood, the blood shed on the cross of Calvary by the Lord Jesus, that we have redemption. We have forgiveness of sins. We are justified before God. He has placed his righteousness upon us. He died, was buried, and rose on the third day, validating everything that he said about himself and what his purpose was and what he did for us. And he's coming back, and all he wants us to do is believe in him, trust in him, what he did for you and who he is. And you will be saved. You will be raptured, and you won't regret it. So whether the red heifers are perfectly red or they're spotted, God will make a way. And he's coming back, folks. He's coming back. And because of that, I hope to see you here, there, but especially in the air. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and God bless.